Hi, everybody. This is Lanette with Underground Science with Beyond the White Noise, and I've got Jax Menez Atwell here with us, and he is currently got Journey with Jax going. How are you doing today?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Well, glad we could finally get you on.
Try and try, right?
Yeah, I had to change computers. I'm on my husband's computer now, so I've killed two. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's actually a day where I had to wear a sweatshirt in Arizona today.
Oh, I'm jealous. I haven't even gone outside yet, but it's cold. So most everybody knows you from Michigan, Alaska. I know that's one of the shows I've watched quite a bit, and I go back and watch the reruns, of course, or I've actually got it saved. So I was going to ask, how did you get started on that?
Michigan, Alaska on my end was a complete, chance thing. In fact, the executive producer liked to tell me that I was a 1 in a billion shot, so I couldn't even have. Because when I got the position, I was like, should I run out and grab a lottery ticket? He's like, no, you're 1 in a billion at this point. They'd wanted a true private investigator to balance out the team. Tommy having a great amount of knowledge into what's Alaska and Alaskan folklore, and then obviously everybody, probably all your viewers know Ken Gerhard the best.
Yeah.
One of the foremost, cryptozoologists out there. They want someone in the middle to keep the investigative process, kind of where it was, and that's kind of how it happened. They originally apparently had somebody else in mind, and I actually submitted for it about 2 weeks late. I had no idea what I was submitting for, and apparently they liked me, and I was the look that they were going for, the background, the resume, and all that stuff. And
right,
a month after that, I was in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
Tommy had been along for the process for well over a year. So he was one of the first, and when they had the concept of doing our investigation. So it was, I definitely lucked out, if you want to put it that way.
Well, the show's good, and I like the way they've got it. I know Ken, I've had him on a previous show. I've been into cryptozoology for a while now. And Tommy, he was great with his knowledge, and that was good. And then you were the skeptic, which I think the tin hat was probably about the funniest part of it.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of stuff doesn't make the show. I mean, we film for, I don't know, 40 to 60 hours in a week, and then 43 minutes of it ends up on someone's television. So a lot doesn't go. Let's just say there was a large Mexican standoff about that scene.
Oh wow, it was good. I had a good laugh.
And freezing cold, and
he looked really serious about it. So I was gonna ask, Journey with Jax. I've watched that on YouTube and read the blog, and it's outtakes from the show you got coming up.
Yeah, so what you're watching on YouTube is just my video blogs right now. They're just there for content purposes. The show is really going to be based around investigative adventure. And so it's going to change depending on who, hires or sends us a case. You know what I mean? It's going to come as an opportunity. Hey, I've got this legend in my family. Want to know if it's true, or it's not just going to be about abandoned buildings. It's the misconcept is that I'm just going to be going around the United States exploring abandoned spots. No, it's actually truly going to be an investigation. And it's going to come from a client, so to speak, or just like you ask me now. Hey, got this building or this cold case that never got solved. I always wanted to know, and what I learned in Missing Alaska was that we could have made an entire show off of fan/followers. Hey, you got to check this out.
Oh, yeah.
And there was so much of it. I was like, there's so many people out there that want somebody to check this thing out. And that's kind of where it started right there in that thought process for me, was getting out there and exploring these things that are dying. And it really hit the hammer on the head for me, nail, hammer, whatever.
I understand.
Was watching my 13-year-old on her phone. and she's on her phone all the time. She's got a big screen TV in her room, and she doesn't use it. She's watching the phone, and she's Googling, and she's constantly on it. And our generation's not there. We're on TV. We're, watching movies. We, still pick up an encyclopedia. But younger generations are getting further and further away. And if it's not on a computer, it doesn't exist. If you can't Google it, it never happened. And a lot of people, if you get into politics, I mean, that's what they want. They want us to not think for ourselves. So, and that's been into play since the early 50s. And I have deep feelings about that. I know there's 70, 80, 90-year-olds with stories that are dying. Evidence is going with them. There's buildings that are being taken back by Earth or demolished for a new casino or, apartment complex. And if we don't
see that outside my window.
Get the ability to tell the stories and try to complete the investigations or at least pass it on, it'll never happen. And that's where my passion lies, really. And that's the basis of Journey with Jax. It usually has to do with some sort of adventure getting to the location. Because a lot of these things aren't just drive up next to it and get out and explore it. They're usually something that's been forgotten somehow, or going to be forgotten. And like I said, that's where my passions lie, is to find those stories and to let everybody and let my audience and my fans, followers, friends, everybody know that stuff. And once you get it into some sort of digital content, like right here, it's out there.
Right.
It's out there. It's never. It's bounced around, and that's the hope, is that then kids will sit there and watch something and maybe go, hey, let's look at this. It's so cool, and that kind of thing. And we'll see where it goes from there. I think it's going to evolve. It's already evolved a lot. So what you're seeing on YouTube really is just my normal private investigator days, where I'm out working cases and I find cool things. That's all that is there is content. YouTube will have extras and interviews, all that stuff eventually. And then also everything's going to be on journeywithjax.com also. We may still go full blown digital too. That's like I said, kids, 20-year-olds are watching their phone, and that's where they're getting their content. They're not getting it off of TV. And that's why we're seeing a major flux in television. People binge watch on Netflix or Amazon or whatever, or they're not watching anything. I mean, cable viewership's massively down. Reality television's massively down. People are tired of it. They want to watch how they want to watch. They want to feel control of their programming. And so it's evolving quickly. If you don't jump on the train, you're going to miss it.
That's true. So you said things sent in by viewers or people asking questions. Are you still open?
We already have, obviously we're just starting, but our first 3 things we're filming are directly from people that we've gotten, and that'll be represented in the show, with the person, how they contacted me, whether it was mail, phone, or in person, and that'll be there, so the viewer will be able to watch it from the start to the finish. Which is always fun for me. It was a hard part of Missing Alaska because the subject matter was always something paranormal, and that's the direction of the show. And you would need a lifetime probably for any of those to solve them, or you may never solve them. And so you're always leaving it open-ended. And I'm used to, as an investigator, mostly closing my cases. That got a little hard. We're out there looking for a missing runner on a mountain marathon in Seward, Alaska, and I want to solve it. I want to find out what happened. Did she fall down? Did was she kidnapped? Was she a runaway bride? I mean, those are the things.
You just want to tie up the loose ends and get it figured out.
The direction of the show was, on that one was obviously a Thunderbird, because it was a plausible explanation for it, because there's really, I mean, if you had ever done this hike and you're on Mount Marathon, you go from the tree level and then up, there's nothing. It's just rock and straight up elevation. How does somebody disappear out there?
Right. You're going down the side if it was me up there.
Correct. But obviously those were well searched and you had thousands of people around that mountain looking for that person. And the only thing is you sitting there going, it's like they got plucked off the mountain, literally just like a bird swooped in.
But is there, say anything that, because people want to know if you're going to get the paranormal people. of course, watching your show. So has there ever been something that you've really had to question yourself on, or, you know?
Well, one thing is I on my appearance to people, especially on the show, is that I'm very straight-laced, and I only believe in this and that, but it's actually untrue. I believe there's a black and a white, but there's a huge amount of gray.
Right.
And so there's a lot of plausible explanations for things. I grew up in a household that was very spiritual and based on Christianity. So a lot of what I sense and what I'm doing my investigations has to do more on demonic and angelic, which, even someone like my uncle who's taught me a lot about, Old Testament potential breeding of those with humans, that kind of thing that could be walking amongst us. So could that be a Bigfoot? Could that be what we're dealing with? Is early on before say Noah's flood, there was some demonic breeding with humans. I mean, that's really getting out there for me. But I always believe that there's a plausible explanation, and I live my life with one basic investigative principle: there's two sides to every coin.
Right.
And if you approach everything like that, you won't miss things. And that's what, if you go back over cold cases, you see they got focused and lost their investigative process because they got pushed towards a direction, and that's what they want it to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why when you open up a cold case, sometimes after 50 years, you can be like, you can see just where they missed, that kind of stuff. In the realm of, the paranormal, I actually probably deal with it a lot more than people would expect. When you're dealing with death and murder, there's something that looms over. And in television and movies, it's easy to get, desensitized to what we're seeing. And then therefore, when you're around it, you think that people can just kill and not have consequence. But for the most part, it's very, very rare in human nature to be able to kill and not have it affect you.
Right.
And for the most part, even cold-hearted people still carry a burden. And that burden being something that they allowed themselves to do. And I'll tell you, it's really helped me solve a lot of cases. And then you get into places where things have happened, you can sense that they've left it behind. I'll give you an example. There's a cold case I have up in northern Arizona from 1888 where three young men, were murdered. It was a political murder. It actually has a lot of parallels to the Clintons and a lot of that stuff. And it's very, very interesting. I've actually tried to get it on History Channel before, but they say nobody who died is famous enough. I would say, well, you can make anybody famous enough if you actually just tell the truth. But, it was local politicians and people basically murdered these young men for their property. And they were hung on a tree called the Hangman's Tree and left there to rot. And they were tortured. They weren't just hanged. They were tortured, like revived, like hung, revived, until they eventually succumbed. And you go to that tree and there's something there. You don't have to be told the tree was where they got hung. you could pick it out.
It's like a heaviness.
The way the tree looks, because the tree's grown. The tree's, obviously a whole lot older than when it occurred. And it's sustained a lightning strike, but it's been confirmed by an arborist to be the tree and the right time period and all that stuff, obviously. But you go there and you know that something very, very evil occurred there. And so, like I said, people don't realize how much you deal with it. But as much as we all want to think we can go around and sin,
right.
We all have subconscious, and we know, and we show that, and we emit those through other senses, whether that's your pheromones, your, whatever you've got that's going to let other people know. As an empath, you just have to be in tune with those. And you usually can pick them up. And I'm sure you've dealt with quite a few empaths, who can tell tons of stories with that. And I believe I was naturally an empath. And then when I went into law enforcement, I think I trained it to sense evil. And I think I've gotten way better at that. But as an investigator, I'll also tell you the flip side, and being in the civilian side, is I've gotten to train it to feel good and to sense good. And I think it's equally as important because it can also help tell you when something that's really odd, a witness statement that's really out there, you might be able to tell that they're telling the truth. You know what I mean? by they're actually a good person and they wouldn't be able to lie in a situation.
Right.
And so there's two opposing sides that I've really developed and continue to develop, I'm sure, till the day I die. And that's what helps me a lot in my investigations.
I mean, it will sense it with people in the areas.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. It's dark here. I can't even see. Now I went through the different shows you've got, or the outtakes or extra recordings you've got on YouTube, and which I really like the Jerome Hotel. Some of these I've never heard of, which I guess that's the reason you picked them. The Bridge to Nowhere, which was really neat. I was telling my husband about that, and I agree with you on that. They need to do something with it. But I mean, a lot of your shows are probably going to be something that not everybody's heard of. It's going to be something new, and they'll probably get a lot of investigating or checking out after the show's done.
Yes.
Is there one particular one you think would be better, or you think people would be more interested in that?
Well, I mean, I think for me and what people are interested in, what I do is the adventure getting to the investigation,
Right.
which is a lot of it. It usually has a lot to do with why people follow. Like I can do things that maybe they can't, maybe they're physically can't, or they live in an area they just can't. They live in a concrete jungle in New York or LA or something like that, and they're just doing this kind of stuff around. Like we talked about earlier, if it's not on Google, it doesn't exist. You really got to get out there, and these things are getting lost because people don't get off the road. And a lot of times I find these things, the ones that aren't an actual case, I'm actually just finding them by just pulling over, getting off, and figuring out where I'm at.
That's what I do. I like to. There's an old house in Missouri I absolutely loved. It's destroyed now, but I did check it out with my husband. And then a few weeks ago, I was trying to get on military base to check something out, and they kept telling me no. And I'm like, it's been on YouTube. There's pictures. It's there's no reason you shouldn't let me do it, but they wouldn't let me. And then I went driving from another direction. I had to take. There'd been a wreck, and so it sent me to another way, and I found an old house that's really neat, and I just happened to pass it and found 4 new cemeteries we didn't know about, and so I got the number for. We went back, and of course the house is posted, but I'm going to try to get permission to do an investigation or get into the house and check things out. But I mean, that's true. A lot of people just drive past, they don't look. And there's so many things that are out there that are not going to be around for long. This house I was just at is probably not going to be around in 5 years. It'll just be down in the dirt. So
I don't know if it's just getting older or what, but it feels like these things are rapidly being destroyed.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously urban expansion is a lot of it, but it just feels like, I don't know if the builds from the 50s, that were, the baby boom expansion of if that is just hitting where, things are going back to dust. Because of the age of things naturally, or if it's just true, hide it and we don't believe it. I got in a funny conversation with a bunch of people yesterday about insane asylums.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. I'm not a ghost hunter. I don't run around and do that, but I enjoy going in them. I enjoy the history of them. I also enjoy to recognize the wrongs that were included in those walls. A lot went wrong. Okay? Just as a police officer and a private investigator, I can't even imagine having women and children, housed with people with mental disorders and orderlies, and all that stuff. There's no way to be a victim. You know what I mean? There's nobody going to listen to you. So things occurred. It may not be murder, but molestations and rapes and all that stuff occurred within those walls, and there's nothing anyone could do about them. Even in some of the better ones. And I find it very interesting that a lot of these asylums are being destroyed, and they're also scheduled to be destroyed. So they're coming up with these ways to get rid of history, as we're seeing with Confederate statues. If it's not there, then you won't ask a question. And now, being in a new millennium, we've got 2 generations now who don't know about the stuff that occurred in the 50s and 60s and people getting thrown into insane asylums. And I mean, wouldn't that generation be shocked when you heard, you know, a widow with 3 kids who couldn't afford it after her husband died gets thrown into an asylum when she's perfectly sane?
Right.
I mean,
That's what I was going to say. These kids don't know that people were put in just, you know, they may have had Tourette's or, you know, just anything. And I think of that because I used to have a gentleman that used to work for me, and we had talked that we'd had about 50 years ago. He might not have been around, you know, families that had kids that maybe they didn't want to claim, or they didn't. You'd see the shows where they say they've had the child that may have had a deformity that lived up in the attic.
yeah.
Where they sent them away. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of the kids nowadays would have no idea about. If you can get into records, you can see it was very common things that some people got locked up for. And I think just being in a place like that is going to break your psyche some.
Oh yeah, I fully agree.
So, what places that you've been to so far? I don't want to name any in case they've changed. I know the Pikachu Peak, that was funny, seeing you in the cartoon and all that, but that looked like it was hell to get to.
Oh, it was. You know, I've heard of that hike before, and just getting up there, it's just amazing. You know, to be honest with you, I've been in Arizona for about 14 years, and I do all of my adventuring not in Arizona. I tend to be in Alaska, Montana, Washington, Northern California. You know, those are my areas. Now I'm in, you know, the upstate New York and Ohio area. I've been exploring a lot too. But I've, you know, come to this recollection of how much Arizona has to offer also, and New Mexico and southern Utah is another place, and there's tons there, tons of history, tons of stuff that's just sitting out there. And it's some, as you saw with the one with the bridge of nowhere. The cool thing about Arizona is things will last a long time because of our weather.
Humidity, and
we don't get the salt water. We don't get the heavy, you know, wind storms. We don't get, you know, tornadoes and hurricanes. About the craziest weather thing we have here is the haboobs that come through here. They are pretty scary, but it doesn't do much damage other than rip trees out. You know, occasionally a roof off, but you know, so for the most part, these things out here, I mean, like that bridge is in pristine condition. I mean, I was just blown away. It's just sitting there, you know, just this huge bridge. It looks like a mini, you know, Golden Gate Bridge because it was, you know, developed by the people who designed the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, and it's sitting there. And I believe it's sitting there politically, and they don't want people to know about it because it's a complete waste of money.
right.
Got taxpayer money to go build a dam to divert the river, which I'm against anything diverting that's natural, and built a bridge that supposedly couldn't be sunk. In 1993, that bridge gets sunk, and here sits this one from, you know, turn of the century, and it's just fine. Other than being a one-lane bridge, it easily, for what you could have used it for, is sitting there and in good condition. You know, at least, why is it not being used for recreation now for you know, cyclists and joggers, and, you know, some sort of nature trail for people to enjoy?
Bungee jumpers.
It's those things really get me mad because it's the trickery of the government on people to get taxes and, you know, fill their coffers and their lobbyists. And that one right there just made me mad because you're sitting there looking at this, you know, huge structure that obviously took some man hours to build and have no use. It'll sit there probably till it eventually falls over or someone takes it down. And, you know, that's no good. That's, you know, we've been tricked. I mean, I don't know, not to get political, but how many taxes and stuff that are on our books that are from bygone times. You know, there were temporary taxes to get through tragedies that were thrown on the people, and everyone obviously wants to help their brother out and does them. And then you know, they don't ever get taken off.
I hate the taxes.
Political there.
Oh, no. I have no light here.
I feel that's part of Journey with Jax is exposing that kind of stuff too, you know, and doing your best. And I know we had a lot of followers on Missing Alaska that liked some of the things that we expose, mostly having to do with, you know, you've got I'm totally drawing a blank on it now. The government system out there, you know, that they were working on the weather. And,
right.
And Ken told me to kill me for forgetting the name of the place. You know, it was kind of weird. A lot of things got shut down when we're out there, and the attitude towards the show from the network really changed after that too. You know, and I don't know if that's pressure or you're making up that in your mind, but you know, some of those things are real. You can get conspiracy theorists with it, but there are some, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Right. And I've read about that for probably 5-10 years. It's just one of them things in the odd books I pick up here and there. Out of all the places you've been to, which one do you think you'd really like to go back to?
Well, as far as for the show, for Journey with Jax, I have plans, hopefully, to return to, well, where the big Bigfoot sightings were, and the city that's just been completely taken away. Nature's taken it back. And again, I'm sorry, I'm tired. I'm completely drawing a blank where this place is. But we flew a drone over it, and we helicoptered into a portion of it. I would like to go back there. It's probably going to be a serious trip to get in there because I want to explore it, you know, and find out what happened to that city and why it's gone. You know, is it really a Bigfoot thing per se, or are we dealing with some serious other presences there, or is it, you know, some sort of government cover up? You know, and also from this in Alaska, Lake Iliamna. Here's another place that, like, why don't we hear more about this? This place is gigantic. It's so large that it's like an ocean.
Wow.
And, like, this place, it almost has the feel like they intentionally keep people out of there. They've been revoking permits, and making it really difficult to get in there. You know, and exploring that area would be awesome to go back to for sure. Alaska has a lot of that stuff. You know, it's a dark state. I like to go back and I enjoy mines, exploring mines, especially ones that have had tragedies and stuff like that. And I've actually got a few on my radar here in Arizona that will be probably part of the show. That's all I'll say on that. But there's a couple we've located and had a couple potential cases out of. So let's see where those go.
To me, mine's just on how, you know, because they're dug into the earth and things like, it seems like to me tragedy would stay. I don't know if that's the right way of thinking about it, but the energy from it would stay in the mind more as something happening out in the open.
Oh, yeah. There's something to that line from Lord of the Rings. They dug too deep. No, I mean, the one thing I'd like to say is journeywithjax.com is really my passion. And it is not a show that I'm creating for the gain of popularity. It's a show that I want people to come along on my journey with me. And that's why I created it that way. I felt like the people that I've met and friends I've made and contacts from Missing in Alaska are a whole different kind of people that I didn't think really existed. And they want to be on that journey. They want to come along. You know, that doesn't, from whatever the storyline is, I don't think it matters as much. I think they just want to see what that is. What is the investigation? What is the adventure? And take me along with you. And I've come, you know, up with this idea and approached it that whole time. Is that's what I wanted. I don't want it to be about me. It's got my name, but it's literally a bunch of us going to do something. And we're breaking the mold. I don't want any of this drop the flashlight, run and scream haunted stuff. I don't want
bats
or you know, reality show, you know, outline, because you can see it no matter if you're watching a cooking show or you're watching, you know, whatever other reality show that's out there, and they're the same outline. It's like almost exactly the same, and nobody wants to break the mold. Whether it'll be successful, I don't know. You take a stab at things in life and you see how they're going to go. So that's my attempt here, to just be real and let the reality of true things work themselves out. And if people want to follow, I'm doing them regardless. You know, on my daily basis, I'm on investigations. I'm all over the place, and I find things and get into things constantly. And I try to keep people taken along with video blogs and writing about them and that kind of stuff. But you know, taking it to a whole new level is the goal here, to reach a bigger audience, you know.
And you don't put everything in a tiny little package at the end, which is what most shows do.
Of course. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with saying we didn't finish it. You know what I mean? Or, this can't be finished. This needs a ton more hours. You know what I mean?
Or maybe, I don't know.
Make the audience are smart right now. They've been through 2 decades of reality television. They know when you're trying to fool them and pull the wool out from underneath them. I think both with having the adventure and the investigation is 2 separate things that make it a more interesting show, to do things, you know, that most people can't. I like to tell, like, going to Alaskans, they hate the reality shows, right? And I used to tell them, well, you have to realize reality shows about Alaska aren't for you. They're created for people that consider going outdoors, taking their chihuahua to the dog park. You know what I mean? It really truly is that. You're creating for a lot of people who physically or because of their location can't go outside. And they live their life vicariously through your adventures, which is, I'm blessed to have that.
Well, one thing I haven't seen, I don't know if you're going to use them or not, is all the fancy gadgets and all the toys that come with, say, paranormal investigating or any other type.
Little gadgets. I love gadgets. Gadgets are fun. I'm a camera guy. Like I said, I'm not a ghost hunter. I don't bring out, you know, EMPs and all that stuff. I let things play out naturally. And if the camera picks it up or we talk about it, then that's great. I was at the Ohio State Reformatory and had a large, very unmovable door open behind me. All I had basically was a photo of me, you know, with a shocked face. And yeah, but I find that to be more believable. I mean, like, sometimes you just don't catch stuff. And when you start making things up, I'll leave it unnamed, but there's a reformatory that I went to back in July, and I got there really, really early and caught them running around inside there doing things. Now, I can't prove what they were doing, but it doesn't take much when people have heightened senses to have a can drop or a bar move or a crinkle of glass to really freak people out and start making stuff up in their minds. I don't want that at all. I want no part of it. I actually walked away and didn't even take their tour that they had been waiting for me to show up for. I want no part of it. I don't want anything that's fake. I mean, there's enough real in reality that people have stories to tell and things to do, then start creating a bunch of stuff just to sell a ticket, you know?
Right. And I think personal experience is better than, I know that we've gone places and set up equipment, but, you know, we ended up not messing with it after a while. And it's the personal experiences you get. And then talking to people about what's going on around there, their take on it. I know the last place we went, I had written out, because we had stayed at a bed and breakfast for 2 nights. And I wrote out for the people who owned it what had happened, which they want to be known as a bed and breakfast, not a haunted location. So here I wrote this big page out of things that had happened, and they're like, "This really happened?" I was like, "Yeah." You know, they've got it. They weren't too happy with it, but most of it was personal experiences. We wouldn't be able to prove it.
Yeah.
And some of it, it's not happened to anybody before that we could read on their notes or even online. So that just made it really great. You know, I would love to go back there and stay a couple more days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. It's about the personal experience. You know, the paranormal and stuff are fun, and it's a nice additive, and I enjoy exploring them. And don't get me wrong, I still go out there looking for things that go bump in the night for fun too. But for me, I'm an investigator, and I want to solve what I put in front of me. And if somebody's come to me to look into something, you know, I don't get a lot of calls for go look for a ghost. You know what I mean? That's not what I do. It's more to solve what happened to their aunt, or is this true or is this not true type things. And that's what I'm there for. I'm there to solve that, or at least give the person enough information to move on with their life or move on with that subject matter in their mind.
So if anybody wants to contact you, they can get a hold of you on Facebook.
Get a hold of me. My social media is all under Jax Menez Outwell. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Obviously, the Journey with Jax TV at Facebook, and then the YouTube Journey with Jax, and then anything investigative through my company, At Will Investigations. That's easy enough to Google. So you're really easy to get a hold of. So link so I can add it to journeywithjax.com website. That's the big thing we want to shuttle people to, is the journeywithjax.com. That's obviously where everything's going through and the content. We do have Patreon. I'm not sure if you know about that, but it's kind of, we're obviously, you want to get picked up by a big network, but I am just fine with going digital also. And so we are currently planning to, be homegrown, and that takes, people joining in too. And we get a lot of that. So Patreon's I've never liked asking people for money. You've got so many things now with, online, some are legitimate for medical reasons. Some are just because somebody wants breast implants, you know what I mean? Or somebody wants to go on a trip or whatever, and they do these things. I think Patreon's a good platform. You get to be part of it. You're part of what they're doing, as opposed to just giving some money. So we are doing that as an option, is the Patreon, and that link can also be found on the website.
Okay, I will definitely check that out. And I'm really glad we were finally able to get you on the show.
Yeah. True.
So, everybody, this is Jax from Journey with Jax. This is Lanette and from Underground Science, and we will see you.